My daughter called me, crying, saying her husband had abandoned her on the highway in a blizzard. He'd stolen everything, even her grandma's inheritance. I listened, my heart turning to ice. But I just smiled. He would regret that night. Soon. If you're here for a story of betrayal and sweet revenge, like, share, and tell me where you're listening from. The blizzard howled like a banshee around Brenda's isolated farmhouse, shaking the windows in their frames. It was 3:20 a.m., an ungodly hour even for the most restless of sleepers, and Brenda had been jolted awake not by the storm's fury, but by a frantic, insistent pounding on her front door. Her heart leaped into her throat, a cold premonition seizing her. Who could possibly be out in such a whiteout, let alone desperate enough to brave the drifts that already piled against her porch? She fumbled for her thick robe, her bare feet meeting the icy floorboards as she moved through the darkened hallway. The pounding continued, growing more desperate, more desperate. Fear tightened its grip, but a mother's instinct, primal and undeniable, pushed her forward. Peeking through the frosted peephole, her breath caught. A figure barely visible through the swirling snow was hunched on her stoop. It was impossibly small, impossibly vulnerable. Brenda flung the door open, a blast of Arctic air rushing into her warm home, carrying with it a flurry of snow. Standing there, swaying precariously, was her 34-year-old daughter, Clara. She was a ghost, her face a mask of blue-tinged pallor, her lips chapped and trembling. Her usually vibrant brown hair was plastered to her forehead, encrusted with ice. She was dressed in nothing more than a thin sweater and jeans, completely inadequate for the brutal Minnesota winter. Before Brenda could even utter her daughter's name, Clara pitched forward, collapsing into her arms. The weight was shockingly light, a dead weight that sent a jolt of terror through Brenda. "Clara, my God, Clara," Brenda cried, her voice choked with panic. She dragged her daughter inside, kicking the door shut against the raging storm. Clara was shivering uncontrollably, her teeth chattering so violently Brenda could hear it over the wind. Her skin felt like marble, shockingly cold to the touch. Brenda's mind raced, overriding the rising panic with a surge of adrenaline-fueled purpose. She practically carried Clara to the bathroom, her daughter's eyes fluttering weakly. Quickly, efficiently, Brenda ran a warm bath, testing the temperature with her elbow before gently easing Clara into the water. Clara gasped, a weak, shallow sound, as the heat enveloped her. Brenda meticulously, gently, peeled off her daughter's soaking clothes, her heart aching at the sight of her daughter's emaciated frame and the deep purple bruises already blooming on her exposed skin. She then wrapped Clara in the thickest towel she could find, her own hands trembling, yet her voice remained steady, a soothing murmur designed to keep Clara conscious and calm. She pressed a mug of hot tea laced with a generous shot of whiskey into her daughter's shaking hands once she was out of the bath and tucked under a mountain of blankets on the living room couch, the roaring fireplace now her only friend. Brenda pulled a rocking chair close, her eyes never leaving her daughter's face. Clara took a long, shaky sip of the tea, the warmth slowly seeping back into her. Her eyes, usually so bright and full of life, were distant, haunted. She swallowed hard, her throat visibly working, and then, in a voice barely above a whisper, a voice raw with frost and unshed tears, she spoke the words that would forever shatter Brenda's world. "Arthur, he left me, Mom, at a rest stop on Highway 52. The name Arthur hung in the air, heavy and incongruous with the horror of Clara's confession. Brenda felt a cold dread settle in her stomach, a feeling far more chilling than the blizzard outside. Arthur, Clara's husband, charming, handsome Arthur, who had swept her daughter off her feet just 3 years ago. Brenda remembered the wedding, the way Arthur had looked at Clara, as if she were the sun, moon, and stars combined. He had always been so attentive, so seemingly devoted. He had made Brenda believe her daughter had found true happiness, a man who adored her. Now this, abandoned, in this blizzard, on a deserted stretch of highway. "What are you saying, honey?" Brenda asked, her voice tight with suppressed fear. "Arthur would never." She trailed off, the images of Clara's hypothermic state, her haunted eyes, warring with the idealized version of her son-in-law. Clara started to cry then, soft, broken sobs that tore at Brenda's heart. "I found them, Mom," she whispered, her words punctuated by shivers. Hidden bank statements. Accounts I didn't know existed. Thousands of dollars missing. Her hands trembled as she clutched the blanket tighter. I confronted him. I asked him, Arthur, what is this? Where is our money? Brenda's stomach twisted. Their money? He didn't even try to deny it, Clara continued, her voice gaining a sharp, desperate edge. He changed. His eyes went cold. He called me stupid, Mom. He said I was an idiot for ever trusting him. He said I was lucky he even bothered to pretend to love me. The words were like daggers, each one piercing Brenda's heart as she listened, helpless. He got in the car, told me to get out, said it was a lesson in respect. He said I needed to learn my place, and then he just drove away. He left me there, Mom, in the middle of nowhere, in the storm. Clara dissolved into fresh sobs, burying her face in the blanket. Brenda felt a primal scream rising in her throat, but she swallowed it down, forcing herself to be strong for Clara. Her mind was reeling, trying to process the monstrosity of Arthur's actions, leaving her daughter in a blizzard, a lesson in respect, the sheer unadulterated cruelty of it. Our savings, Mom, Clara choked out, pulling herself together with immense effort. My inheritance from Grandma Ruth. You know, the money she left me for a down payment on a house, our emergency fund, all of it, gone. Every penny, $37,000. He took it all. The number hung in the air, a stark, brutal figure. $37,000. Grandma Ruth's legacy meant to give Clara a secure future. Stolen. Brenda felt a cold, burning rage ignite deep within her. It wasn't just theft. It wasn't just abandonment. Arthur hadn't merely stolen Clara's financial security. He had tried to dispose of her, to let the Minnesota winter do his dirty work. He had left her to die, alone and freezing, simply because she had dared to question him. Brenda pulled Clara into a fierce hug, rocking her gently. Her daughter's small, shaking body against hers fueled the inferno of fury now raging in Brenda's heart. She held her daughter close, feeling the fragile beat of her heart. And in that moment, as the first pale slivers of dawn began to break through the dark, storm-laden sky, illuminating the frost-covered windows, Brenda made a vow, a silent, powerful vow. Arthur would pay for this. He would regret the day he ever met Clara, and he would regret this night most of all. This was not just about Clara's money or her broken heart. This was about justice, about a mother's relentless, unforgiving love. As the morning light grew stronger, casting a soft glow over the room, Clara finally drifted into a deep, exhausted sleep, her tear-streaked face now peaceful in repose. Brenda remained still, holding her daughter, her gaze fixed on the window, watching the last of the blizzard die down. The storm outside might be passing, but within Brenda, a new, far more dangerous storm had just begun. 3 days blurred into a silent haze at Brenda's farmhouse. The blizzard had passed, leaving behind a pristine, untouched landscape of glittering snow, but inside the atmosphere remained heavy and frigid. Clara was a ghost, moving through the motions of existence with a terrifying stillness. She ate little, spoke less, and spent most of her time wrapped in blankets on the couch, staring blankly out the window. Her spirit seemed to have been sucked out of her, leaving behind only the hollow shell of the vibrant woman Brenda knew. Brenda watched her daughter with a heart that ached and burned in equal measure. She cooked, cleaned, and kept the silence at bay with soft murmurs, offering comfort without pushing. During these 3 agonizing days, Arthur remained silent. Not a single phone call, not a text, not even a voicemail. He didn't visit. It was as if Clara had simply vanished, and he hadn't noticed, or, more terrifyingly, didn't care. His silence screamed volumes, confirming every one of Brenda's darkest suspicions. On the 4th morning, Clara finally stirred from her torpor. She sat up, her eyes, though still red-rimmed and distant, holding a flicker of resolve. "Mom," she said, her voice raspy, I need to go back to the house. I need to get my things, my important papers, my grandmother's locket." Brenda's stomach clenched. The thought of Clara stepping back into that house, into what was once her sanctuary but was now clearly a den of treachery, filled her with dread. But she also understood the need. Clara needed closure, needed to reclaim some small piece of herself from the wreckage. "I'm coming with you," Brenda stated, her tone leaving no room for argument. She wouldn't let Clara face that alone. Not now, not ever. The drive to Clara's perfect suburban home, a neat two-story house with a carefully manicured lawn, felt profoundly ominous. The snow made the streets quiet, almost reverent, as if even the neighborhood held its breath. Brenda remembered the day Clara and Arthur had bought the house, brimming with excitement, talking about future children and garden plans. Now the cheerful yellow siding seemed to mock them, a thin veneer masking a cruel and insidious truth. The house stood sentinel, quiet and unassuming, yet Brenda felt an impalpable sense of malice emanating from its very bricks. They pulled into the driveway, the crunch of their tires on the snow, the only sound. Arthur's sleek black sedan was gone. A small victory, perhaps, but it offered little comfort. Clara, her jaw set, walked up to the front door, her hands shaking slightly as she reached for the keypad to disarm the alarm. She entered her usual code, a date significant to their relationship, but the panel simply flashed red, beeping a sharp, insistent denial. Clara tried again, then another code, her fingers fumbling. No luck. He changed it, Clara whispered, her voice laced with fresh betrayal. He locked me out of my own home. Brenda's anger simmered, a low, dangerous heat beneath her calm exterior. This was Arthur's final petty insult, a deliberate act to strip Clara of even the illusion of ownership. Brenda, ever practical, produced a spare key Clara had given her years ago. It clicked in the lock, a small, hollow sound, and the door swung open. The house felt wrong. It was meticulously clean, almost sterile, a chilling testament to Arthur's absence and possibly his hasty departure. There were no signs of a struggle, no lingering scent of Clara, just the faint, impersonal smell of lemon polish. It felt hollow, as if its soul had been ripped out. Let's start in his office, Brenda suggested, her voice firm. We need to find any paperwork, anything that explains this. Clara nodded, her face grim, and led the way to Arthur's study. It was a well-organized room, lined with bookshelves and a large oak desk. Arthur, Brenda remembered, prided himself on his orderliness. It was a facade. Clara began sifting through drawers, her movements precise, almost robotic. Brenda scanned the bookshelves, her eyes narrowed, looking for anything out of place. After a few tense minutes, Clara gasped, pulling a stack of envelopes from a hidden compartment in the desk. More statements, Mom, she breathed, her voice barely audible. These are new. Brenda took them, her heart pounding a heavy rhythm in her chest. The first few were mundane utility bills and old loan statements. Then a statement from a different bank, one Brenda didn't recognize. Her eyes widened as she read the names. Arthur Sterling and Eleanor Vance. The name was unfamiliar, yet it was undeniably linked to Arthur. The account showed staggering regular deposits, tens of thousands of dollars flowing in over the past 2 years. Brenda's gaze flickered to the billing address, Green Bay, Wisconsin. Green Bay, Brenda repeated, the name tasting like ash in her mouth. What's this, Clara? Who is Eleanor Vance? Clara was pale, her hands clenching into fists. I don't know. I've never heard of her. They continued to dig, a furious, desperate search, uncovering a terrifying paper trail. Hidden beneath Arthur's neatly stacked tax documents, they found credit card statements. These weren't for everyday expenses. These were for luxurious dinners at high-end restaurants, exclusive jewelry purchases from boutiques Clara had only ever window shopped, and first-class flights to exotic destinations. Paris, Rome, the Caribbean. Arthur's secret life, meticulously documented, laid bare before them. Each revelation was a fresh stab, a testament to the depth of Arthur's betrayal. He hadn't just been stealing from Clara. He had been building a lavish parallel life with another woman, using Clara's hard-earned money and inheritance to fund it. Then came the most devastating discovery. Tucked inside a folder labeled Property Deeds, Clara found a real estate document. Her eyes scanned it, then widened in horror. It was a deed for a house, a beautiful, newly built house in Green Bay, Wisconsin, purchased by Arthur Sterling and Eleanor Vance. Joint ownership. Clara slumped into Arthur's leather chair, the air leaving her lungs in a shaky exhale. He bought a house, she whispered, her voice hollow. With her. He bought a house with her, using my inheritance, using our savings. The weight of the revelation pressed down on her, crushing her. All those dreams of their own home, of a future built together, were not just shattered. They had been maliciously repurposed, sold off for another woman's dream. But the abyss of Arthur's treachery only deepened. As they continued their grim inventory, more documents emerged. Loan applications with Clara's forged signature, lines of credit taken out in her name, a second mortgage secretly placed on their own home, the home Arthur had just locked her out of, all without her knowledge or consent. He hadn't just stolen from her, he had leveraged her very identity, her future, her security. Then, tucked into a calendar, a small, folded piece of paper caught Brenda's eye. It was a handwritten note, Arthur's distinctive, elegant script. Brenda unfolded it, her blood running cold as she read the words. C suspects something. Need to accelerate timeline. E says she's ready to make it official. C suspects something. That was Clara. E says she's ready to make it official. Eleanor Vance. The words hung in the air, chilling them to the bone. He knew Clara was onto him. And instead of confessing, instead of trying to salvage anything, he had accelerated his plan. The timeline he spoke of, what did that mean? What did make it official entail? A divorce? An engagement to Eleanor Vance? The thought was sickening. But the very last discovery in that office, tucked away in a dusty file labeled insurance policies, was the most terrifying of all. Brenda pulled out Clara's life insurance policy. Her fingers trembled as she read the beneficiary section. Clara had always named Brenda, her mother, as her sole beneficiary. But now in stark, undeniable print, the name had been changed. Eleanor Vance. Brenda stared at it, the paper trembling in her hand. Her daughter's life insurance. Changed. To another woman. Just days, weeks before he tried to abandon her in a blizzard. The implications were horrifying, undeniable, and utterly monstrous. Arthur hadn't just stolen her money and her identity. He had intended to steal her life. That night, sleep was a cruel stranger to Brenda. The damning evidence lay scattered across her dining room table. Bank statements, credit card bills, property deeds, and the horrifying life insurance policy. Each document screamed betrayal, a meticulous chronicle of Arthur's dark agenda. Brenda walked among them, a phantom in her own home, reviewing every piece, every number, every damning signature. This wasn't the clumsy act of an amateur. This was too precise, too organized, too utterly cold-blooded. Arthur's actions were not just desperate, they were calculated, the work of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. This wasn't his first time. The chilling thought settled deep within her bones, solidifying her resolve. As dawn approached, painting the eastern sky in hues of soft gray and pale rose, Brenda made a call. It was early, but she knew Thomas, her late husband's brother, was an early riser. Thomas, a retired police officer with 3 decades on the force, had connections that ran deep in an intuitive understanding of the criminal mind. He was meticulous, sharp, and fiercely loyal to his family. Thomas, it's Brenda. I'm so sorry to call this early, but I need your help. It's about Clara and Arthur. Her voice was steady, betraying none of the turmoil raging within her. Thomas, ever the professional, listened patiently as Brenda briefly outlined the nightmare. He didn't interrupt, his silence a testament to his gravity and focus. I'll be there in an hour, Brenda, he said, his voice calm, but with an underlying steel Brenda recognized. Don't touch anything else until I get there. True to his word, Thomas arrived promptly, a solemn figure in his worn leather jacket, his eyes, though kind, already sharpened with concern. He greeted Brenda with a hug and Clara, who had emerged from her room with a gentle, reassuring squeeze of her shoulder. Then, without preamble, he sat at the dining room table, his gaze sweeping over the array of documents. For the next 2 hours, Thomas meticulously examined every piece of paper. He donned a pair of reading glasses, his brow furrowed in concentration. He picked up the bank statements, noting the varying account numbers in banks, the inconsistent timing of certain transfers. He scrutinized the forged signatures on the loan applications, tracing the slight variations that hinted at a practiced hand trying to mimic Clara's script. He shook his head slowly, a grim expression settling on his face. This is sophisticated, Brenda, Thomas finally said, looking up, his gaze meeting hers. This isn't just a husband gone bad. These financial maneuvers, The multiple accounts, the careful documentation of some things while others are deliberately hidden. It speaks of a professional operation. This man, Arthur, is not an amateur. Brenda's stomach clenched, confirming her own growing suspicion. So, what does that mean? It means Clara married a con artist, Thomas stated bluntly, his voice devoid of emotion. Just stating a fact. And I suspect Eleanor Vance is his accomplice. He pointed to the joint bank statements with Eleanor's name. These regular, staggering deposits aren't just one person's income. This looks like a joint venture. They're running a scam together. He then pulled out his phone, a worn old model flip phone, and began making calls, speaking in hushed, clipped tones to various contacts. Brenda and Clara watched him, a silent, terrified audience to the unveiling of a nightmare. After what felt like an eternity, Thomas ended his last call, his face a mask of grim satisfaction. Eleanor Vance, he began, his voice low, is a known quantity, or at least her methods are. She was married to a man named Richard Vance in Arizona, who accused her of similar systematic financial draining and forgery a few years back. The case never went to trial. He dropped the charges, probably too ashamed or too broken to fight, but the pattern is identical. Clara gasped, a shaky sound that tore at Brenda's heart. Eleanor Vance was not just Arthur's girlfriend, she was his partner in crime. The realization was sickening. And Arthur, Thomas continued, his voice hardening, Arthur Sterling is not Arthur Sterling. His real name is Victor Thorne. The revelation hit Brenda like a physical blow. Victor Thorne, not Arthur. The man Clara had married, had loved, had trusted, was a ghost, a fabrication. Thomas then laid out Victor Thorne's history, a dark tapestry of deceit. Victor Thorne has a history of fraud charges in 3 different states, a string of bankruptcies under various aliases, and a restraining order taken out against him by a former victim in Nevada. He's a professional, Clara. He makes a living off this. Brenda felt a cold fury, a silent scream building inside her. Her daughter, a victim, targeted. Thomas went on, explaining his deductions. Victor, or Arthur as you knew him, specifically targeted you, Clara. My sources suggest he began looking into your family around the time your grandmother, Ruth, passed away, and you received your inheritance. He knew you had money, Clara. This was premeditated, long-term. The pieces of the puzzle clicked into place, forming a terrifying picture. The charming demeanor, the extravagant gestures, the rush to marry, it was all a carefully orchestrated performance, a trap. The house in Wisconsin, Thomas stated, pointing to the deed. It was purchased with your stolen inheritance money, Clara. Victor Thorne and Eleanor Vance have been living there openly, as a couple, for over a year. He's been commuting, living 2 entirely separate lives, one with you, the doting husband, and one with his partner in crime, Eleanor Vance, the successful thief. Clara stared at the document, her breath catching in her throat. The audacity, the sheer contempt for her happiness, was unfathomable. He had been leading a double life, a grotesque parody of marriage, while draining her dry. Thomas's expression grew graver as he picked up the life insurance policy. His eyes met Brenda's. And this, he said, his voice quiet but laced with profound concern, this beneficiary change, coupled with the abandonment in a blizzard, it suggests a far more sinister motive, Brenda. This wasn't just about financial fraud anymore. This was about an attempt on Clara's life. Brenda felt a chill that had nothing to do with the Minnesota winter. Thomas was right. It wasn't just money. It was murder. Arthur, Victor, had tried to kill her daughter. Thomas took a deep breath. We need to be careful, Brenda. This man is dangerous. He's proven he's willing to go to extreme lengths. We need to document every single piece of evidence, every bank statement, every email, every forged signature. We need to build an ironclad case. This is going to be a long fight, but we will get him. Brenda nodded, her gaze firm, resolute. A long fight. Good. Because she had all the time in the world to make sure Victor Thorne paid dearly for what he had done to her daughter. After Thomas left, the silence in Brenda's farmhouse felt heavier than before, thick with the weight of Victor Thorne's monstrous betrayals. Thomas had provided a terrifying clarity, but his advice, while sound, spoke of a slow, arduous legal process. Brenda wanted more than justice. She wanted retribution, swift and absolute. She wanted to make Victor Thorne understand the pain he had inflicted. The legal system, with its measured pace and often frustrating loopholes, felt inadequate for the scale of his crimes. She walked to an old mahogany desk in the corner of her living room, a family heirloom, and pulled out a worn, leather-bound phone book. Its pages were yellowed with age, filled with names and numbers from a life that felt long past. Her finger traced down a faded page until it stopped at a name she hadn't thought of in years: Samuel Black Investigations. Samuel had helped her once, years ago, with a delicate family matter, and she remembered his keen mind, his quiet intensity, and his unconventional but highly effective methods. The next morning, Brenda met Samuel Black at a quiet downtown cafe, far from prying eyes. Samuel hadn't changed much. His eyes, the color of dark roasted coffee, were still sharp and observant, missing nothing. His frame was lean, almost wiry, and he carried an aura of intense focus, a man who thought several steps ahead. Brenda, with a briefcase filled with all the documents Thomas had identified, laid out the full, harrowing tale. Clara's arrival in the blizzard, the discovered bank statements, the forged signatures, the hidden house in Wisconsin, the life insurance beneficiary change, and Thomas's chilling conclusion about Victor Thorne's real identity and intentions. Samuel listened, his expression unreadable, occasionally taking a slow sip of his black coffee. He didn't interrupt, didn't offer platitudes. When Brenda finished, her voice raw with emotion, Samuel leaned back in his chair, his gaze fixed on the bustling street outside the window. "Victor Thorne," Samuel said, his voice a low rumble. "I remember him." Brenda's breath caught. He operated under the name Michael Davidson a few years back in Illinois. Fraud case. The victim was a wealthy widow. She lost everything, but she refused to testify, too afraid, too humiliated. She just disappeared from public life after that. A cold dread seeped into Brenda's heart. This confirmed her deepest fears. Victor Thorne wasn't just a con artist. He was a predator, a man who left not just financial ruin but shattered lives in his wake. "Is he dangerous?" Brenda asked, her voice barely a whisper. Samuel's eyes met hers, unwavering. "Extremely. He doesn't just steal money, Brenda. He steals identities, he steals futures, and he destroys spirits. People like him, they don't care about collateral damage. They make people disappear, not always physically, but from their lives, from their sense of self. He feeds on vulnerability." Samuel then pulled out a sleek tablet from his briefcase, tapping rapidly. Images and names flashed across the screen. Michael Davidson in Colorado, Daniel Morrison in Texas. Those are just a couple of his known aliases. Each one leaves a trail of ruined women, financially devastated, emotionally broken. He targets women of a certain age, often recently widowed or divorced, with access to inherited wealth or significant assets. He studies them, learns their vulnerabilities, then moves in for the kill. He paused, then added another layer to the horror. And Eleanor Vance. She's not just an accomplice, Brenda. My contacts have dug a little deeper. Eleanor Vance is Victor Thorne's mentor, and shockingly his legal wife, in Wisconsin. They've been married for over 15 years, which means his marriage to Clara, it's bigamous, a complete sham. He never intended to be your daughter's husband in any real sense. Brenda felt a wave of nausea wash over her. Not only had he stolen Clara's money and tried to kill her, but he had mocked the very sanctity of marriage, a sacrilege against everything Brenda held dear. He had truly built a foundation of lies. "So what do we do?" Brenda asked, her voice tight. "Thomas thinks we should go to the police, build a case." Samuel nodded slowly. "That's the standard procedure, and it's valid. But with Victor and Eleanor, it's tricky. They're good. They've been doing this for a long time. If we go to the police directly, without truly undeniable damning evidence, they'll lawyer up. They'll deny everything. They'll claim Clara was a willing participant, or even that she was unstable. They'll dismantle her credibility piece by piece until the police have no solid case. They've seen it all, and they know how to manipulate the system." He leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with a focused intensity. "No, Brenda, we don't go to the police yet. We need to play their game, but we need to win. We make Victor believe he has won. We let him think he's gotten away with it. Then, when his greed makes him careless, we spring the trap. Brenda listened, a flicker of hope igniting in her weary heart. A trap? Victor and Eleanor, Samuel explained, they're not just about the long con. They're also living an extravagant lifestyle. My sources suggest they're spending faster than they're stealing. They're always on the lookout for the next big score, the next vulnerable target with a large inheritance or significant assets. They're desperate, in their own way, for fresh capital. He leaned back again, a subtle, almost predatory smile playing on his lips. We lure them with the promise of a massive, irresistible target. Something so tempting, so lucrative, that they can't possibly say no. We make them come to us. We force them to make mistakes, to expose themselves, to leave a trail so undeniable that not even their seasoned cunning can escape it. We don't just build a case, Brenda. We engineer their downfall. Brenda stared at him, a shiver running down her spine, not of fear, but of a cold, exhilarating anticipation. What kind of target? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Samuel's smile widened, a dangerous glint in his eye. The kind that will make Victor Thorne believe he's hit the jackpot of his career. The kind that will make him so arrogant, so confident in his invincibility that he won't see the handcuffs coming until they're on his wrists. Brenda felt a surge of adrenaline. This was it. This was the path to true justice, to the kind of revenge that would taste sweet and final. This was how they would ensnare the monster who had tried to destroy her daughter. If you're gripped by this story of betrayal and cunning revenge, don't miss a single twist. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to keep up with every part of Clara and Brenda's journey. Your support helps us share these important stories. Samuel's plan was audacious, dangerous, and brilliantly conceived. It required Clara's complete, unwavering cooperation, an almost theatrical performance of broken vulnerability. He laid it out in Brenda's living room, the quiet farm now the central command for their operation. Clara would have to pretend to be utterly shattered, a victim who, despite everything, still yearned for a shred of her past life with Victor. She would need to appear isolated, overwhelmed, and tragically naive, exactly the kind of target Victor Thorne preyed upon. Brenda looked at her daughter. The initial shock and devastation had slowly begun to recede, replaced by a quiet, simmering fury. Clara wasn't the broken woman who had collapsed on her doorstep. In the past few days, a steeliness had settled in her eyes, a newfound strength born from the ashes of her betrayal. Brenda knew deep in her heart that Clara was capable of seeing this through. This wasn't just revenge, it was her reclamation. This isn't just about getting your money back, Clara, Samuel stated, his voice devoid of sentimentality, yet laced with an undeniable gravitas. Victor Thorne attempted murder when he left you in that blizzard. He is a dangerous predator who has destroyed countless lives. Our goal here is not just to get him arrested, but to ensure he never harms another woman again. You're not just a victim, you're an essential part of stopping a serial criminal. Clara nodded slowly, her jaw set. I understand. I'll do whatever it takes. The operation began immediately. Samuel's first priority was security. Within 24 hours, Brenda's farmhouse, once a sanctuary of quiet solitude, was equipped with a state-of-the-art surveillance system, hidden cameras, and reinforced locks. Brenda and Clara also received new encrypted phones for all communication related to the plan. Samuel left them with a burner phone for Clara, a lifeline that would soon connect her to Victor, and a detailed script of how their first conversation might unfold. 3 weeks later, every detail was meticulously in place. Samuel's network, a shadowy collective of ex-cops, hackers, and forensic accountants, had worked tirelessly. A carefully orchestrated social media campaign had begun to spread whispers through local community groups and online forums connected to Victor's past activities. The rumors, seeded by anonymous accounts, painted a grim picture. Brenda, a supposedly wealthy matriarch from a prominent local family, had received a devastating medical diagnosis, a rare and aggressive illness. The prognosis was dire. More importantly, and crucially for their trap, the rumors included news of a substantial, fictional $800,000 inheritance. Not from Brenda directly, but from a recently deceased distant relative, now to be bequeathed entirely to Brenda's sole daughter, Clara. To lend absolute credibility to the story, Samuel's team fabricated fake bank records, meticulously detailed medical documents, and even legal papers outlining the inheritance. These documents were discreetly placed in public records and online databases that Victor, with his known habits, would inevitably scour. The plan's genius lay in its simplicity. It exploited Victor's insatiable greed, preying on his belief that Clara, now facing the imminent loss of her mother and the sudden burden of vast new wealth, would be utterly vulnerable and isolated. The perfect, easy target. They didn't have to wait long. It was a Tuesday afternoon, a little over 3 weeks after the initial groundwork was laid. Clara's burner phone, a device she had come to dread and anticipate in equal measure, vibrated with an incoming call. The caller ID simply read, "Unknown number." Brenda and Samuel watched Clara from across the living room, their faces etched with a mix of tension and anticipation. Clara took a deep, shaky breath, her rehearsed lines playing in her mind. She answered. "Hello," she said, her voice deliberately frail, just a hint of a tremor in her tone. A smooth, familiar voice flowed through the speaker. "Clara, is that really you? It's Arthur." The name felt like a snake's hiss, yet Victor's voice was warm, concerned, oozing false sincerity. "I've been so worried about you, sweetheart. I heard about your mother and about everything else. I'm so sorry, Clara. So incredibly sorry." Clara clutched the phone, her knuckles white. Brenda watched her daughter's face contort, a masterclass in controlled agony. Clara's voice trembled as she replied, "Arthur, I don't understand. After what you did, after you left me." Her voice broke, a raw, convincing sound of fresh hurt. She knew exactly what Victor wanted to hear. An echo of her pain, a sign that she was still reachable, still malleable. Victor continued his performance, a virtuoso of deceit. "I know, Clara, I messed up, terribly. I was under so much stress, so much pressure. I said and did things I deeply regret. I've been thinking about you constantly. I've been trying to find you, to explain, to apologize properly. I've been to the house, but you weren't there. I was so afraid something terrible had happened to you." Brenda's blood ran cold. The sheer audacity of his lies, the calculated concern, was repulsive. But Clara, her eyes meeting Brenda's for a fleeting moment, held firm. She was an actress, playing the most crucial role of her life. "I've been staying with my mom," Clara said, her voice small, almost broken. She's not doing well, Arthur. The doctors, they're saying it's very serious." Victor, the consummate predator, pounced on the bait. "Oh, Clara, my poor darling. I heard about Brenda's diagnosis. It's truly devastating. My heart goes out to you both. You must be overwhelmed. A diagnosis like that, and now, well, I heard about your inheritance. That's a lot to handle for one person. All those financial and legal affairs." He paused, letting the implication hang in the air. "I want to help you, Clara. I know I screwed up, but I still care about you. Let me help you manage all of this. I have experience with estates, with investments. You shouldn't have to face this alone." He was offering financial assistance. The bait had been taken. He was circling, sensing the scent of the $800,000 inheritance. Brenda watched, her stomach churning with a mixture of revulsion and immense pride. Victor Thorne, or Arthur as he still called himself, was a monster of the highest order. But Clara, her beloved daughter, was a force of nature. She was playing him, meticulously, flawlessly, drawing him deeper into the web of their revenge. Victor Thorne, effortlessly slipping back into the guise of Arthur, Clara's repentant husband, spent the remainder of the phone call weaving a masterful tapestry of remorse and promises. He offered to make things right, to rebuild their life, to prove he was still the man she fell in love with. His voice was a soothing balm, coated in sweet lies, promising a future that had never truly existed. He even alluded to his profound distress at hearing about Brenda's supposed illness, framing it as a shared tragedy that they could overcome together. Clara, hesitant but convincing, allowed herself to be persuaded, her voice trembling with manufactured uncertainty. She agreed to meet him. Not at her home, she insisted, still feigning a fragile fear, but in a public restaurant, a neutral territory where she could feel safe enough to talk. Victor, ever the strategist, agreed immediately, eager to close the distance. As soon as she hung up the burner phone, Clara visibly sagged, the forced tension draining from her shoulders. She looked at Brenda and Samuel, her eyes wide with a mixture of disgust and a disturbing vulnerability. "Mom," she whispered, her voice raw, "even knowing everything, knowing he's a monster, a part of me wanted to believe him. Just for a second. The way he talked, the promises." She trailed off, shaking her head as if to dislodge the insidious feeling. Brenda rushed to her daughter's side, pulling her into a tight hug. "That's exactly how he operates, honey," Brenda reassured her, stroking Clara's hair. "He preys on good hearts. He finds the part of you that wants to believe in love and forgiveness, and he exploits it. But this time, Clara, we are using his assumptions against him. Your good heart is going to be his downfall." Samuel nodded in agreement, a rare, almost imperceptible nod of approval. The next evening, the chill of the Minnesota winter had deepened, but inside the upscale Italian restaurant, a deceptive warmth permeated the air. Clara sat at a secluded table, a tiny, almost invisible wire taped to her skin, humming with the silent promise of justice. Outside, Samuel's discreet surveillance teams were already in place, blending seamlessly into the urban landscape, their equipment silently recording every word, every gesture. Victor arrived precisely on time, a bouquet of Clara's favorite white roses in hand. He looked impeccably handsome in a tailored suit, his eyes filled with a feigned anguish, his movements radiating a practiced charm. He was the perfect picture of a distraught husband, seeking redemption. "Clara," he breathed, his voice rich with feigned emotion, as he took the seat opposite her. "Thank you for meeting me. These are for you. I've missed you so terribly." He launched into a flawless performance of remorse and love, recounting his mistake as a moment of weakness, a lapse in judgment brought on by unspecified work pressures. He spoke of sleepless nights, of regretting his actions, of his profound love for her, the one true love he had ever known. He confessed to being ashamed, to being a fool, to wanting nothing more than to earn back her trust, to rebuild what they had. Every word was carefully chosen, designed to dismantle her defenses, to make her believe in the fantasy once more. Subtly, almost imperceptibly, he steered the conversation away from his past transgressions and towards their future, his eyes gleaming with a predatory glint as he mentioned unexpected windfalls and the burden of sudden wealth. "With Brenda's condition," he said, his voice dropping to a sympathetic tone, "and this incredible inheritance, you're going to need someone you can trust to help you manage everything. It's overwhelming, Clara. I have so much experience in financial planning, in investments. I want to offer my expertise to help you navigate this. For us, for our future." Clara maintained her act flawlessly. Her voice was soft, fragile, laced with a convincing blend of confusion and loneliness. She acknowledged his outreach, the apparent sincerity of his apologies, but firmly stated that she needed time to think. "It's all so much, Arthur," she murmured, clutching her wine glass. "My mom, and now this inheritance. I just feel so lost. I don't know who to trust anymore." She let her gaze linger on his, a flicker of doubt in her eyes, drawing him further into the web. As Clara excused herself to the restroom, her phone vibrated discreetly in her purse. It was a text from Samuel. "Perfect performance. Phase 2 tomorrow." A surge of cold satisfaction ran through her. The plan was progressing. Victor was hooked. Phase 2. Clara knew what that entailed. Tomorrow she would agree to let Victor help with Brenda's fictional estate planning. She would mention the need for a financial advisor to handle the complex details of Brenda's will and the substantial inheritance. Victor, as expected, eagerly volunteered his services, portraying himself as the only one she could truly trust, the repentant husband who now sought to make amends by securing her wonder. He believed he was gaining unfettered access to the massive $800,000. He believed he was about to orchestrate his biggest score yet. This phase was crucial. It was designed to force Victor to forge documents related to the estate, to manipulate legal processes, and to fully expose the intricate details of his criminal operation on record, creating an undeniable paper trail that would lead directly to him. Every meeting, every phone call, every document he touched would be meticulously recorded and analyzed. As Clara returned to the table, Victor was already sketching out investment strategies on a napkin, his eyes alight with a hunger she knew all too well. He saw only the dollar signs, blind to the carefully constructed trap closing around him. Just as the evening drew to a close, Samuel Black contacted Brenda, his voice tight with controlled triumph. "Brenda," he said, "we've located 3 of Victor's previous victims, Susan Miller, Laura Kim, and Diane Cooper. All of them, after hearing about Clara's story and our promise of a solid case, are ready to testify. Their courage will solidify our case against him. He won't escape this time." Brenda felt a shiver of vindication. The net was closing. Victor Thorne was about to face not just Clara's wrath, but the accumulated fury of all the lives he had ruined. The air was sharp and biting on that cold Friday morning, exactly 2 months to the day since Victor Thorne had abandoned Clara in the merciless Minnesota blizzard. The date was no coincidence. It was a deliberate choice, a symbolic full circle for the culmination of their plan. The final confrontation was set. Victor had completely fallen for the trap, his greed blinding him to the meticulously laid snare. Over the past weeks, under the guise of helping Clara manage her mother's overwhelming affairs and the fictional $800,000 inheritance, he had presented her with an elaborate financial plan. It was a masterpiece of deceit, fake investment accounts, meticulously forged documents, and a counterfeit power of attorney, all designed to give him full control over Brenda's imagined wealth. Every meeting, every whispered conversation in cafes, every document exchanged had been meticulously recorded and photographed by Samuel Black's team. They had built an ironclad case, a mountainous stack of irrefutable evidence. Brenda and Samuel sat in a nondescript sedan in the parking lot across from Victor's unassuming downtown office building. The winter sun, weak and watery, cast long shadows. From their vantage point, they watched as Victor, dressed in a sharp suit, greeted Clara at the entrance. His smile was sickeningly confident, radiating the arrogance of a predator who believed he had secured his next victim. Inside the building, FBI units and local police officers were in position, disguised as office workers and delivery personnel, awaiting Samuel's signal to move. The signal would come once Victor produced the forged power of attorney, the final undeniable piece of the puzzle. Clara, her heart a drumbeat in her chest, followed Victor into his office. He led her to a large, polished desk on which lay a stack of documents. Victor, ever smooth and supremely confident, began to explain his fraudulent plan, unaware that he was narrating his own downfall. He gestured to charts, spoke of high-yield investments, and highlighted the necessity of the power of attorney for expedited access to the inheritance funds. His voice was a hypnotic drone intended to lull her into submission, to make her sign away her future. Clara listened, her face a mask of feigning confusion, her hands trembling just enough to appear nervous, but not suspicious. Her gaze flickered to the document Samuel had instructed her to look for, the power of attorney. It was there, prominently displayed. This was it. She took a deep breath, her eyes meeting Victor's, and delivered the rehearsed lines, her voice clear and steady despite the tremor in her soul. "Arthur," she said, using his false name one last time, "there's something you need to know." Her voice hardened slightly. "My mother isn't really sick, and there is no inheritance." Victor's smile froze. It was a grotesque transformation, his practiced charm crumbling in an instant, replaced by dawning panic. His eyes, seconds ago alight with greed, widened in disbelief. "What are you talking about, Clara? This isn't funny." Clara stood up, her posture straightening, shedding the mantle of the broken victim. Her voice now resonated with a quiet, powerful fury. "It's not funny, Victor Thorne. And I know your real name. I know about Eleanor Vance. I know about the house in Wisconsin. I know about all the forgeries, the hidden accounts, the stolen money. And I know you changed my life insurance policy." Victor stumbled back, a desperate animal sound escaping his throat. He looked around wildly, a cornered rat. His eyes darted to the door, then back to Clara. a mixture of rage and terror contorting his features. He couldn't process it. His perfect plan, his biggest score, was unraveling. Clara continued, each word a hammer blow against his carefully constructed lies. You also forgot about Michael Davidson in Colorado and Daniel Morrison in Texas. And you probably don't remember Susan Miller, Laura Kim, or Diane Cooper, do you? All the women you ruined. She watched, grimly satisfied as the weight of his past crimes crashed down on him. In a fit of desperate, panicked anger, Victor lunged forward, not for Clara, but for his briefcase, which lay open on the desk. It contained the original fraudulent documents, the evidence that would damn him. It was a final, critical mistake. Clara, anticipating the move, stepped back, her voice ringing out, clear and accusatory. And you, Victor Thorne, tried to kill me. You left me to die in a blizzard just so you could collect on my life insurance. You are a monster. As the last word left her lips, the office door burst open. FBI agents, badges displayed, swarmed into the room, their weapons drawn. Victor Thorne, you are under arrest, one of them bellowed, for wire fraud, mail fraud, forgery, and conspiracy to commit murder. Victor, stunned and helpless, was cuffed and led away, his face pale with shock, his empire of lies finally collapsing around him. Simultaneously, miles away in Green Bay, Wisconsin, Eleanor Vance was apprehended by a separate team of agents. In her meticulously organized home, they found not only the stolen money from Clara, but also detailed records documenting all their scams, aliases, and victims, a chilling testament to their long and horrific career of deceit. 6 months later, justice was served. Victor Thorne, faced with overwhelming evidence and the testimony of multiple victims, including Susan Miller, Laura Kim, and Diane Cooper, pleaded guilty. He was sentenced to 30 years in federal prison without parole. Eleanor Vance, deemed the cunning ringleader, received an even harsher sentence, 40 years, effectively a life sentence. All of the stolen money, including Clara's inheritance, was meticulously recovered and returned to the victims. The house in Wisconsin, bought with Clara's stolen funds, was sold, its proceeds contributing to the compensation fund for those Victor and Eleanor had wronged. One blustery afternoon, Clara and Brenda drove out to the old rest stop on Highway 52, the scene of Victor's monstrous abandonment. The snow had long since melted, replaced by a carpet of green grass. Clara stood there, gazing out at the desolate landscape, a quiet strength radiating from her. You know, Mom, she said, turning to Brenda, a faint smile touching her lips. That night, 2 months ago, was the worst night of my life. But in a way, it was the best thing that ever happened to me it showed me who I really am. It showed me my strength, my courage. It showed me I have a mother who would move mountains for me. And it saved me. Brenda pulled her daughter into a fierce hug, her heart swelling with pride and love. The blizzard of betrayal had given way to the calm of consequences, and from its ashes Clara had risen, stronger and more resilient than ever before.